Hello, Professor Rotella here, and in this tutorial I'm going to go over render layers and how they can help you. Now, this tutorial, it should be reasonably quick and straightforward, but basically what render layers can do is they can allow you to render your objects on individual render layers, either so you can composite them individually, or you can make render layers that have different utilities on them per se, and you could then use those utilities to do different things when you go to composite and things like that. But in any case, let's go over how you can make render layers in the voiced place. First of all, you can either go to your render setup menu, which is either this one right here, the clapboard with the two stacked layers, or you can go to Windows, Rendering Editors, and Render Setup. Alright, so and this brings up your render layer menu, and then of course to add a layer, you just press this little guy right here. Makes a layer, and I'll call this mug layer. And alright, now I can't just drag and drop this mug into the render layer. As a matter of fact, you don't add objects directly to a render layer. What you do is you create a collection. So I'll right click on my mug layer. I'll create a collection, and I'll call it mug C for mug collection. Now, if I select my mug and I hit add over here, it will add my mug to my collection. And then similarly, I can make another layer for the table layer, and again I can create a collection, table collection, or I could have just done table C like I did before, but regardless, I'm not being very consistent here, but it's fine for what I'm doing anyway. But yeah, now I got my table added to I could have sworn I had a different version of this file where I had these actually named. Regardless, got my table added to my table collection, and now I have effectively put everything into its own render layer. So, by default, what I'm going to be rendering is, by default, it's always going to be set to your master layer, which is going to be all of your layers, but I can change it to just my mug layer, which will now give me just my mug. So if I were to hit refresh render, within my render, I would get just that. I would get a render of which I would get just that, a render of just my mug. Now, similarly, if I were to switch to my table layer, which you can see it all switches by default in my viewport, then I hit refresh render, then I get a render of just my table individually. Alright, now we can start setting up different combinations of things to get different utilities or different things, so that we can use our layers individually to greater effect. So if I abort this render, and what I'm going to do is I have some duplicates here of both my objects. So if I were to pardon me, I'm still on my table layer. So if I go back to my master layer, then you can see I have some duplicates here, and I can hide my originals, which perhaps I'll put them in their own group. But I got my duplicates, and on these duplicates what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, I already have one made, I'm going to use a Shadowmatte shader, but for the sake of making a new one, and you see me apply it, I can hit AI Shadowmatte in the shader here, and then select both of my duplicates and hit Assign Material to Selection. Now, what I can do with this is I can use these as utilities to get different layers of rendering control using my render layers. So, for example, originals, and so an example, what I could do is I could create a new layer, call it mug with shadow, and I can get my mug, and I can get my duplicated table that has the Shadowmatte, and well, first I'm going to want to create a collection, and then this is my mug shadow C for collection, and I can add both of them to my collection that I got here. Now if I were to change my render layer to mug with shadow, which, oops, I have them backwards like a fool. Remove. I want my original mug and my duplicate table. Add. And now, yeah, I'm on my mug with shadow layer. And if I hit refresh render, then I get my mug. And if I look at my alpha channel, you see that I also have its shadow isolated on the same layer as it. So I could use this mug with shadow to just add drag and drop composite my mug complete with its shadow onto onto a new comp or some such thing, so that I can have individual control over my mug and its various attributes. And similarly, I could make like a layer that's like my color layer, add both my create a collection, my color collection, and I could add my originals group to that, and I could make a another layer that's my shadow layer, create collection, shadow, C, and add my duplicates. Now I could go to my color layer, refresh render. You see I get a render of all of my colored objects. And if I were to switch to my shadow layer, render, refresh render, and if I look at my alpha channel, you can see that I am getting a render of just my shadows on this layer. And similarly, render, okay, all channels. All right. And also, there are AOVs in your render settings specifically for the Shadowmatte. You can see we got these three right here, which can be used to make different clipping masks and things like that. Render, refresh render, and I can look. Oh, well, I'm not going to get much of anything. Alright. that there. Let's look at my mug with shadow layer, render, refresh render. Channels, and I can get my shadow mask, which I can use to make different clipping masks and things like that. But yeah, so the point being, all in all, I don't really need to go through any more of this. The point being that you can just use render layers in different ways to organize how you want your scene to render, and organize how organize how you want your scene to render, and then you can use this organization and these layers to create different layers that can either help you make masks or just different passes effectively that you can use for compositing. So it's just another way that you can get individual control over different objects that you're rendering in your Maya scene. So anyway, hope this was helpful, hope this was educational, hope you learned, and thank you for watching.